Let me ask you a question that might ruin every other television romance you watch from this moment forward. Have you ever stared at a screen, completely paralyzed by the sheer intensity of two fictional characters, wondering how something that doesn't even exist in real life can physically hurt your chest? If you are sitting here nodding right now, then you know exactly what I am talking about, because we are talking about Eda Yıldız and Serkan Bolat. We are talking about the kind of consuming, combustible, universe-altering chemistry that doesn't just entertain us, it completely rewires our brain chemistry. For anyone who fell down the absolute rabbit hole of Sen Çal Kapımı, you know that what we witnessed wasn't just a standard enemies to lovers trope. It was an emotional masterclass in how two people can be each other's greatest sanctuary and most devastating trigger, wrapped in stolen glances, high-stakes drama, and a love story defying every law of logic. Think about the very first time they crossed paths. It wasn't a cute meet cute under a blooming tree, it was a collision of two opposing forces of nature. Eda was chained to a podium protesting her ruined scholarship and future, while Serkan was the cold corporate titan who unwittingly held the keys to her destiny. Right from that instant, the air pressure in the room dropped. It was ice meeting fire, creating a thick, blinding steam that clouded out the rest of the world. What makes their dynamic so magnetically addictive from a psychological standpoint is how perfectly balanced their brokenness is. Serkan built an impenetrable fortress out of architecture, rigid routine, emotional detachment, and total control. To him, love is an unpredictable variable that cannot be calculated on a blueprint. And then walks in Eda, a literal supernova of warmth, spontaneity, fierce loyalty, and unyielding passion. She doesn't just knock gently on his guarded door, she kicks it completely off its hinges, bringing vibrant color into his monochrome world and forcing him to feel things he spent a lifetime burying deep inside. Yet, the absolute brilliance of their story is that Eda isn't just a passive catalyst or a manic pixie dream girl sent to fix a broken man. She has her own deep, gaping wounds, a fierce independence, and a pride matching his brick for brick. When they were forced into that utterly ridiculous fake engagement contract, every single viewer knew they were playing with dangerously flammable material. The fake relationship trope is a classic television staple, but with them, it felt lethal. Every time they were forced into close physical proximity, the tension became so palpable you could literally reach out and touch it in the air. You remember those moments in the office, the late-night design reviews under harsh desk lamps, the sudden summer rainstorms trapping them together, the elevator doors closing and trapping their breathing space, where the distance between them shrank until nothing was left. It was the way Serkan looked at her lips while desperately trying to maintain his icy professional composure, and how Eda rolled her eyes at his unbearable arrogance while melting inside every single time he looked at her like she was the only living soul in a crowded room. As the fake relationship began to blur dangerously into a very real, terrifying reality, their clashes became more personal. They didn't just disagree, they challenged each other's core philosophies on life. Serkan taught Eda about discipline, ambition, and protecting her heart, while Eda taught Serkan how to laugh, how to abandon schedules, and how to breathe without calculating the next step. But what separates a mediocre television romance from a legendary one is the sheer depth and brutality of the obstacles they clawed through. The universe seemed to personally enjoy torturing these two. Just when you thought they were finally going to take a breath and let themselves be happy, the narrative rug would get yanked violently out from under their feet. The tragedy surrounding Eda's parents' death and Serkan's family's inadvertent, haunting involvement in that past catastrophe is the kind of narrative gut punch that permanently breaks ordinary couples. It was a cruel collision of guilt, ancestral trauma, and crushing moral obligation that forced them apart in the most agonizing ways imaginable. We watched them suffer in silence, crossing paths in quiet hallways, whispering desperate apologies with their tear-filled eyes, and holding on to old love letters like fragile lifelines in a raging, stormy sea. That slow-burn agony creates an intense emotional dependency in the viewer. We didn't just want them to kiss, we desperately needed them to survive each other. And if family secrets and past tragedies weren't enough to drive us completely insane, the writers threw us into the emotional demolition zone of the time jump and the Amnesia Arc. Let's be completely honest with each other, the amnesia trope is usually a tired, lazy cliché, but watching Serkan return with zero recollection of the woman who completely transformed his soul was genuinely traumatic. Watching Eda stand there, desperately trying to jog the memory of a man who looked at her like a total stranger while carrying the crushing weight of everything they built together, was absolute torture. It hurt because we knew the vast depth of what he had forgotten. The muscle memory of his love for her was buried somewhere deep in his chest, fighting to break free even when his conscious, stubborn mind resisted it. Even when Serkan tried to push her away and build new walls, his eyes involuntarily followed Eda across every single room. His physical body remembered her warmth long before his brain ever caught up. What makes their relationship so riveting to analyze over and over again is the constant, exhausting push and pull between vulnerability and defense mechanisms. Serkan gives everything to architecture because he thinks he can control structural integrity, but he learns through Eda that human connection cannot be blueprint or engineered. He tries to protect her by keeping her at arm's length, but that only causes more devastation because they are hardwired for each other. Eda fights her own instincts too, fiercely proud and refusing to ever be treated like a secondary option. When she walks away, she does it with her head held high, leaving Serkan utterly shattered in her wake. That mutual respect for each other's inner strength keeps the power dynamic deliciously equal. Neither truly subjugates themselves to the other. They clash, they roar, they cry, and then they heal, hand in hand, stronger than before. Before we dive even deeper into how their emotional reconciliation sets the gold standard for dramatic storytelling, I want to ask a massive favor from you. If you have ever stared at your ceiling at 3 in the morning thinking about Eda and Serkan's rooftop conversations, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel so we can keep geeking out over legendary television together. And seriously, drop a comment down below right now. What was the exact episode, the exact scene, where you realized there was no turning back and you were completely hooked? Was it holding hands under the table at the restaurant, the magical cabin getaway, or that heart-stopping confession in the greenhouse? I read every single comment, and I want to know your rawest theories and favorite memories. Let's talk about the way they communicate without words, because that is where the actors truly delivered a masterclass in non-verbal acting. Think about the physical language between them. It wasn't just about the passionate, scene-stealing kisses, though their chemistry was volcanic enough to melt the screen, it was in the micro-expressions. The way Serkan's thumb would instinctively stroke the back of Eda's hand whenever she was anxious or uncertain. The way Eda's shoulders would visibly drop the second she stepped into his personal space, as if her entire nervous system recognized it was safe. In television romance, actors often rely entirely on sweeping, poetic dialogue. But with Eda and Serkan, you could take away all the dialogue, mute the sound completely, and you would still feel the staggering, crushing weight of their devotion. You would see it in the way Serkan anchored her when the world spun out of control, and how Eda brought light to his darkest corners. This is why, years after the final episode aired, people across the globe are still talking about them, writing essays, rewatching specific scenes on loop, and chasing that high. Eda and Serkan represent an idealized yet deeply human fantasy, the idea that no matter how broken you are, no matter how much emotional armor you wear to protect your heart, the right person doesn't just knock on your door, they demolish the walls and make you glad they did. They teach us that true love isn't a fairy tale devoid of conflict, it is the messy, beautiful, exhilarating work of choosing each other every single day, through amnesia, dark secrets, tears, and triumph. They set a benchmark for romantic tension that modern television rarely dares to touch. So if you need me, I'll be rewatching their best moments, wondering how any other couple could ever measure up to the unstoppable storm that was Eda and Serkan.